What do we see in sports that makes them so great? What is it that we capture? It's the power and the promise to bring us together, express our aspirations, ignite our passions. It's not religion, but there are rituals, and sometimes we pray. It's not politics, but it has the ability to shock the world. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, or where you come from. For sure, it rewards the strong and the quick and the wise. But mostly, it's perseverance that gets the prize. Because it's not just being the best that counts. It's facing down fear, overcoming obstacles. And for some, just getting in the game is a win. At Getty Images, we capture everything that sports deliver. All the power, all the pageantry, all the stories behind the scores. For more than a quarter century, we've covered the biggest games, most memorable matchups, and more than 50,000 sporting events each year. With unrivaled access, the latest technology, and a deep historical perspective, the world's best sports photographers and videographers focus a lens on the triumphant and the vanquished, the powerful and the passionate. From the heartbreaks to the heroics, the struggles to the redemptions, and the moments made for the ages. Sports brings us together, realize our aspirations, turns passion into progress. That's what we see in sports. That's what we capture. Because when the games are over, it's those images that remain.
On today's download, Ross Watson from MNC Saatchi Sport and Entertainment talks about the power of sport and how it can help you promote your brand, amplify messaging, and connect with consumers around the world. We'll show you how we deliver sport imagery that's brand safe, budget friendly, and beautifully shot. We'll share what our research says about choosing images that help foster diversity and inclusion. And we finish strong with bonus coverage of how Getty Images captures the Olympics like no one else can. The download, the one about sport, starts now.
Hello and welcome to The Download, presented by Getty Images, your insider's look into the world of visual storytelling and what it means for your marketing and communications. I'm your host, Rachel Brinton Matthews, Senior Art Director at Getty Images. Thank you for joining us. And I want to extend a special welcome to our Premium Access subscribers. From impactful visuals to unique insights to workflow solutions, we're here to help you get the most out of your Getty Images plan. Thank you for being a customer. We'll be taking questions later on, so please submit any that you may have in the Q&A below. And now on to the show. Sport has the power to connect with the consumers all over the world. Today, our group of experts explore the why, what, and how sport can fit into your marketing and communication plans. First up, we're joined by Ross Watson, Business Director at MNC Saatchi Sport and Entertainment. Ross is here to show us why sport can be so powerful when used by brands. Welcome to The Download, Ross.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Very, very excited to be here and very excited to talk to you about the power of sports, which is something I'm incredibly passionate about. A quick intro into who I am. I work at MNC Saatchi Sport and Entertainment. We are a global specialist agency in passion point marketing. So we connect brands to consumers through their passions like sports to deliver meaningful, impactful change. Today, I'm going to talk about why sport, what are the reasons why you should tap into the power of sports in your brand marketing, and what the benefits to that would be. Starting off with quite an obvious start, but the size of the sports audience globally is huge. 83% of people globally watch one or more sports on TV or online a week. So we are talking about a huge audience that you can connect your brand to. And what that also means is a huge community, whether you're connecting to a team or a tournament like the Olympics or the Paralympic Games or the FIFA World Cup, or athletes themselves, you are tapping into an incredibly loyal fan base within each of those sports or passions. So there's a huge sports audience out there that we can connect with. The football season started last night. 91 million people tuned into the Super Bowl last year. So football alone is a huge audience that a brand can really tap into the power of the football season, whether it's kickoff last night or when the Super Bowl comes around. Lots of brands are in sports already, big and small. So if you are not using the power of sports in your marketing, you might be being left behind. $350 million was spent in the US alone last year on sports marketing, and that is during a global pandemic. So huge numbers are spent in sports world in advertising, marketing, and brands are out there doing it already. So it's a huge opportunity for you to come in and be part of that conversation. And that conversation is happening every day. Sports are always on now, and being a sports fan is a 24/7 behavior. So not really a month goes by where the football season isn't kicking off. We haven't got a huge major tournament, the Premier League season. Sport is on the agenda every day, and it's on our fans' agendas every day. So tapping into that audience and being part of that conversation credibly is a great chance for you and your business and your brand to be part of that conversation and talk to a huge audience. So it really does give you a great opportunity to speak to your audience and these fans every day in your marketing. Another reason is there are lots and lots of growing opportunities in sport. Women's sport has seen a huge rise over the years and is estimated to be worth around 90 billion by 2030. So it's one of the biggest growing sectors in sport. And that is another huge opportunity that your brand can tap into around women's sport. So lots and lots of reasons why you should tap into sport and what the power of sport is to tap into your big audience. There are many benefits as well to a brand for doing it. There are brand benefits, there are commercial benefits, and there are societal benefits. Kicking off with brand, sports fans are more loyal and therefore more inclined to notice brands marketing. So 52% of fans feel loyal towards companies that partner with their passion. So it is in a brand's interest to align themselves with passions of fans, whether it's a sport or a team or an athlete, because you are buying that fan's loyalty into your business. And we as consumers, we are 74% more valuable when a brand is fully connecting with our emotions. So for brand marketing, it's a huge opportunity to really elevate your brand and really talk to an audience if you are tapping into the power of sports. There's huge commercial benefits, obviously, to being involved in sport. The estimated worth of the sports market is 700 billion. And what that means for brands is there is a huge fan base out there. 58% of fans are more likely to purchase a product from a brand that partners with an object of their fandom. As well as that, 1 in 3 sports fans spend a significant part of their income on being a fan. So when we are looking at tapping into this sports and tapping into a big sports audience, they are willing to spend their money on brands, particularly brands that are partnering with their passions and their sports. And finally, in society, more and more consumers are looking for brands to have a positive impact on society. So sports offer a really natural platform for brands to demonstrate that purpose and to align with the values that these fans have and this audience has and the principles that they have. So in society, 62% of consumers want companies to stand up for the issues that they are passionate about. We see a lot of that with Megan Rapinoe, with Colin Kaepernick. A lot of fans are really behind athletes who are starting to talk out, and there is a huge opportunity for brands to be part of that conversation. 62% of Gen Z and Gen Y believe brands have the power to create communities based on common interests and passions. And 69% expect brands to be part of the debate, to promote more progressive values and to play a more meaningful role in society. So, why sports? Lots of reasons. There's a huge audience out there. There's lots of growing elements of sport, like women's sports, that you can tap into. It's on the agenda every day. It gives brands a brilliant chance to be talking to a really active and a really loyal and a really engaged audience 24/7. But it brings brilliant brand benefits. Fans are more loyal and more invested when a brand is tapping into an object of their fandom. It brings huge commercial benefits. Sports fans will support brands that are partnering with an object of their fandom. And in society and shared passions, these shared passions are an incredible driver of human relationships. So brands in sport can be a brilliant voice for fans around the world, around the issues that are really close to their hearts. So there is a huge opportunity there in sports for you and your brands. And that's it from me. I will hand over back to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Ross. That was fascinating. So interesting to see all those stats around sports as well. Remember, in order to use any editorial image for any commercial or promotional use, you will need to obtain additional permissions from the copyright holder of the photo, as well as the persons and places depicted. So to use a professional sport image for commercial use, you will need the relevant league's permission, as well as the permissions of any persons depicted in the image. If you have any questions, contact your legal team. We'll be back after this.
Strength, dedication, inclusivity, wellness. This new series from Lighthouse Films conveys a story across these themes, crafting a visual narrative that challenges stereotypes and alters perceptions. Beautifully captured and cinematically framed, this athlete's commitment to his mental and physical wellness is brought to life through the lens of his daily routine and small moments of serenity. Steeped in authenticity, this immersive series shines a spotlight on the continuous need for visuals that spark inspiration and elevate diverse storytelling. Discover more about this shoot and get inspired at creativeinsights.gettyimages.com.
So we've seen why you want to leverage sport in your marketing and communications and what the benefits are for your brand and business. But what about the how? Let's shift to how Getty Images can help. You're likely familiar with our editorial sports coverage, and we'll be talking about that later during our Olympics segment. If you're a sports sponsor, you'll see how we can help extend your promotional spend with a custom premium access plan. But first, how can you get sport images that are perfect for nearly any use, more affordable than shooting them yourself, and included in most premium access subscriptions? Here to tell us how is Senior Art Director Alwyn Gosford. Welcome back to the show, Alwyn.
I'm delighted to be back, Rachel.
Alwyn, let's say I'm a brand that wants to use impactful sport images to connect with customers through my marketing and advertising channels. What can Getty Images offer me?
Our viewers are probably aware of our creative royalty-free collections and the craftsmanship that goes into producing the thousands of subjects and themes that are represented there. Sport is obviously one of them, but what they might not know is that we invest some amazing large-scale shoots to create royalty-free sport images that are easy to license, ready to use for nearly anything from social media posts to global marketing campaigns. And this is all in response to customer demand. When producing these projects, there are two main areas that we focus on. The first is to identify and mimic the key viewpoints that you see in genuine editorial coverage. And the second is to get all the details right. The first shoot we ever attempted like this was soccer. Now, you can't use a major soccer stadium, as they either don't want you using their pitch, they're very, very protective about it, or they want too much money. So we have to find smaller venues that have a large enough grandstand to get the right camera angles, and then also a club that's got a really good looking pitch. It turned out to be surprisingly difficult, and it actually took us 2 years and dozens of stadiums, but we finally found what we're looking for. And I think you can see here that it has the look and feel of a real international stadium. The next big challenge was designing 2 team kits that looked contemporary, but not too visually similar to any famous team colours. And here you can see some of the versions that we went through before we found our favourite options. Now, although we weren't showing the crowd in this shoot, we still dressed the edge of the pitch with advertising boards, photographers and marshals to add that extra sense of authenticity. After that, we were ready to go, and here are some of the final images. Now, after that, we turned our attention to motor racing. Surprisingly, we found a racing circuit pretty quickly, and once we'd identified the type of racing car that looks closest to a Formula One car, we were able to find a team willing to participate in the project. Now, if you've ever seen a top-level racing car, you know they are covered in logos. And what took the time with this project was designing those logos, as we had to make them look credible, but again, not too similar to any existing brands. After that, making and applying the logos to the 5 cars took a team of 12 people 2 days to do. However, having everything covered allowed us to shoot a wide variety of shots, knowing that we wouldn't have any problems afterwards with unwanted branding. Now, so far, you may have noticed that we haven't shown any spectators, but with the professional basketball shoot that we did recently, you'll note that the crowd comes right down to the court side, so there's no way that we could avoid featuring people. The problem was that we estimated that we needed to see about 3,000 people, and we couldn't afford to do that. So we went back to use an old Hollywood trick, back to 1939 and Gone with the Wind, where we used real people in the foreground and dummies in the background. That way, we only needed to use 1,500 people. Because it's an American game, we had to be really careful to design team kits that were not similar to any of the current NBA teams. But as with the Formula One shoot, making sure that we had every angle covered allowed us again to shoot a really wide variety of shots and angles, really similar to those that you would see in editorial coverage, but with the safety knowledge that everything you see in the shot is released.
Thanks so much, Alwyn. That's a fascinating insight into these unique shoots and how Getty Images delivers on a very real customer need.
My pleasure, Rachel.
Now, how do you find these amazing sport images? Well, the fastest 5 minutes in search is next. Please welcome to the programme from the Getty Images North America research team, Adam Leveroni. Hi, Adam. So, how do you go about finding these amazing sports images?
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me today. And I'm more than happy to walk through some ways to find some of this incredible content that Getty Images has to offer. What I'd like to highlight today are 2 other basic ways that you can find imagery aside from your introductory keyword search that you would conduct for your basic Getty Images image searching. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'd like to do is make sure that everyone is right on the basic Getty Images homepage and that we have creative images selected from our choices of search. This is very key to make sure that it is always selected because, as we've noted earlier in the episode, that editorial sports imagery does have certain permissions and restrictions around that particular kind of visual. So we want to make sure that creative images is highlighted, and then we can go ahead and conduct our first search. So the first thing I'd like to do is type in the keyword of American football. And the reason why I wrote American football is something that Ross and Alwyn highlighted earlier, is that Getty Images sports content is global. It's something that spans multiple countries and multiple sports. And we feel that the more specific that your image search becomes, the better you can go ahead and hone in on the kinds of imagery you're looking for, both more quickly and more efficiently. So let's go ahead and conduct our search. So we'll go ahead and click enter. And as you can see, we've conducted a basic image search. So what's next? The next step we want to go ahead and is find one image that, or our introductory image that we're looking for that's really key, something that strikes our eye. So we'll scroll down a little bit further. Okay, we're looking, for a few more imagery. We're not quite there yet. So let's see here. Okay, so we've reached the bottom results, and we like this image here of the players walking out of the tunnel. It's bold, it's vibrant, it looks more authentic than some other creative images would be. So let's go ahead and let's click on the image itself, and the search result pop-up will appear. And this is known as the asset detail page. And this is going to give us a lot of details about the image, as well as some other features that I'd like to highlight today. So this image here, again, it's got a lot of authenticity, from the emotion on the players' faces to the uniforms to the fog coming out of the tunnel. And we said, okay, we like this image. We want to know if there's any more visual surrounding this image. Is there more from this particular photographer? Is there more in the set that the photographer has put on the Getty Images website? And the first thing I'd like to show you is how to find those features. So if we roll down the asset detail page, you're going to see over here where it says details on the right-hand side, you're going to see a credit. And what that credit is the person who actually produced the imagery. With creative imagery, it spans so much from just graphics to generic photography to things that are more authentic. But the point is that someone is behind the camera. Someone is producing this content that is so bold and striking. And it really gives us a chance to be able to go ahead and search for more of their work. So let's go ahead and click on their actual name, right where it says credit on the right-hand side. So after we click on the name of the photographer, it's going to come back to the search, but the search is going to be blank. And what this does is that it allows us to go ahead and search within the photographer's work itself. And then that way we can go ahead and hone down even more from our initial search. So let's go ahead and repeat the process of typing in American football. And I'll go ahead and search. And you'll see that anything that has the keywords associated with that within this photographer's work is going to populate in the search results. Now you can tell where you are looking or where your images will come up within the photographer's work by looking here on the left-hand side where it says applied filters and photographer. That's how you know you are searching within the work of a certain photographer. So if we go ahead and scroll down within our searches, you're going to see all of the work that this particular photographer has done with associated of American football. As you can see, there's 8 full pages of results. So let's go to the next page to see if we can find even more imagery or something that would be interesting to us. Now, in the event that you are not seeing something that you're particularly looking for, you can go back to the top of the page and you can go ahead and you can narrow down the search even more. So we have American football, so we want to go back to that image with that big, authentic look. And so let's go American football, and normal, a lot of football games are done obviously in the evening, so we'll go American football night. And as you can see, the keywords will change your search result even more. Again, still within the photographer's work, and you will get a completely different set of imagery, really honing in and being more specific to the kinds of images that you're looking for. So this is one way that you can go ahead and find even more imagery off of the homepage and making sure that you have even more options for your project and for any of the usages that you're looking for. So the 2 things I really want to highlight today are, number 1, imagery can be found in a variety of ways aside from your general keyword search. As we saw, you can look up through the photographer, you can look at the series in ways that are able to broaden your search and give you the most authentic and really different imagery for your production. The second point is that Getty Images strives to give you the authenticity and creativity within its creative sports imagery. We understand that it is global, and we understand that it can be difficult not using editorial imagery, but with the creativity and authenticity that Getty Images does strive to provide, you will find that the choices that you have for your projects are going to be quite large, and we feel very confident that your projects will give you the look that you are. Our imagery will give you the look that you are striving for.
Thank you, Adam. That was brilliant and a fascinating insight into search on gettyimages.com. We'll be back after this. Our visual GPS research tells us that 8 in 10 consumers expect brands to be consistently committed to diversity and inclusion in their advertising. Last month, we shared with you the latest LGBTQ+ visual guidelines, and this month we turn to diversity and inclusion in sport. Here to tell us more about it is Jacqueline Burke, head of Getty Images Creative Insights team in EMEA. Welcome to the show, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Rachel, and what a lovely warm introduction. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with everybody for the next 15 minutes to share with you some key actionable insights on how you can create meaningful impact through the power of inclusive sports visuals. Now, as we've heard so far, and most importantly seen, sport is a very empowering form of visual storytelling. Why? Because it tells lots of stories of belonging and community. And I think we can all agree today that this is very vital as we continue to live with the COVID pandemic. But first, let's pause and ask ourselves, well, why visuals in the first place? So as you might expect, for all of us here at Getty Images, we're very passionate about moving the world through images. But we also keenly understand the challenges that you face in capturing your audience's attention, whether you have business to business or business to consumer communications. Now, quite simply, we are living in an increasingly visual world, so much so that 84% of all communication is now visual. And we're also seeing huge increases in video viewers worldwide. And if you combine this with the fact that 60% more time is now spent on media as we continue to live through the COVID pandemic, we understand that capturing your audience's attention in a landscape of content oversaturation is key. So to that end, I'm very pleased and proud to bring to you Getty Images Visual GPS. And this is an ongoing research platform that very much is here to help you find the right kinds of sports visuals that will connect with your audience in 2021 and beyond. Now, as you might expect, we at Getty Images, as the leader in visual communications, have very much pioneered visual research methodology over the past 25 years. And we take a three-pronged approach where we combine our internal data of about 1 billion plus annual searches. We take our creative team's nuanced visual insights and we combine this with ongoing consumer and professional research. Why? Again, very much to help you understand what kinds of visuals will move your customers to action. So to that end, why don't we start there? What is important to consumers today? And here is the great news. Wellness is now the most important thing that people take a stand for, fight for, and want more of in life. And if we kind of want to understand this intention in a more meaningful but practical way, 81% are now telling us that they very much want to develop daily well-being practices and exercise routines. And I think it's quite interesting here when you see that word daily. Also, people very much are viewing health and well-being across a holistic spectrum. 93% are telling us that they place equal importance on emotional, physical, and mental health. And I think if we really take stock and understand how the World Health Organization is communicating about the fact that we are facing a mental health crisis, the likes of which we have not seen before, specifically due to living with the very difficult conditions around the COVID pandemic. And again, sport is a very vital way in which we can meet people's needs. Now, what was very interesting to us on the Creative Insights team here at Getty Images, and probably unsurprising, is the positivity that has arisen around technology, and more so how it's helping to keep people excited and engaged in sports and well-being. We found that 71% are now telling us that they're excited about the impact of tech innovation in particular on wellness. So you can think of things like fitness trackers and meditation apps. And as we really begin to understand the types of visuals that are now resonating with customers when it comes to sports and wellness, I think you can agree that it is time now to really expand beyond the wonderful and inspiring stories of female and male athletes, but also to move forward from state-of-the-art gyms that show muscle-perfect bodies or really light and airy yoga studios. Because now we're seeing there is a great importance being placed on realness, on immediacy, and on accessibility. Because we just have to look at how people throughout the COVID pandemic very much were innovative, and they took to turning their bedrooms, their playgrounds, their backyards, their dining rooms into their everyday gyms and everyday pitches, for example. They are finding opportunities to try to look after their well-being and to support their loved ones. So as Rachel mentioned in the introduction, what is really important to people is that they really expect you to be consistently committed to inclusion and diversity in your visual messaging. However, they are telling us that brands are falling short. Only 14% say that they feel accurately represented in advertising and imagery. And only 14% tell us that currently with the companies that they're doing business with, only 14% show diversity, and a lot of diversity. And when you look at this across an age perspective, the older you get, the more this figure drops. So for our baby boomer generation, this figure dramatically drops to just 8%. And I'm sure you would like to really understand what are your customers' visual preferences that really drive them towards taking a purchasing decision. So interestingly and importantly, they really want to see people that look like me and my everyday life. They really want to see images and photos of people that are not retouched, and they want to see the emotional rewards that people get from using a product or service. And again, sports visuals can really help with all of this type of powerful communication. Now, quite sadly, it's very important to understand the why. Why do people want to see more realness, and why do they want to see themselves represented? So when we look at our ongoing data here at Getty Images Visual GPS, it's very sad to see that people's experience of discrimination in their everyday lives is genuinely driving this need for inclusion in your advertising and brand communication. So this is where we're here to help today. And we're going to start off by sharing our first actionable insight, which is the importance of understanding body inclusion in sport. Now, body bias is the most encountered bias by people around the world, regardless of their gender, their generation, or what region they live in. So it's not surprising that over 8 in 10 have told us that they really want brands to show all body types, shapes in their business communication and advertising visuals. And when you look at this experience of body bias through the lens of gender, for example, women are telling us that they're more likely to experience body discrimination because they're seen to be too heavy, too curvy, or to have imperfections like stretch marks or acne. Whereas we find for men, they're more likely to experience body discrimination because they're seen to be too skinny, too weak, or too tall. So here is a great inclusivity check question you should ask yourself when you're looking at the visuals that you've selected, or when you're building out a visual strategy that is really focused on sports visuals. Ask yourself, are you showing all kinds of body shapes, types, and sizes at different levels of physical fitness? Because again, normalizing different types of bodies, types and shapes really encourages people to participate in sport. So actionable insight number 2, disrupt aging in the visuals that you pick that really focus on sports stories. Forget about some of those images that we typically see being overused by people around the world, which really focuses on silver-haired heterosexual couples who run down the beach in all types of weather conditions, or they're jogging in the park, and really begin to understand and ask yourself, are you showing 50 plus people engaging in a wide variety of sports that they're passionate about and that show different levels of skill? Now, we're here to help you at Getty Images, and we very much are delighted to share with you the Disrupt Aging collection, which you will find on our website. And this Disrupt Aging collection shows multi-dimensional sports experiences for the 50 plus. And we've done this in partnership with AARP, very much informed by all of those visual GPS insights we have for the older generations. Now, moving on to our third actionable insight, and this time it's all about increasing visibility around disabled people in sport. Now, we know for disabled people going through the COVID pandemic, they've been in quite a vulnerable position when it comes to accessing their local support groups. And we also have known very well here at Getty Images that there is a lack of representation around people with disabilities, because we see in what our customers are using and downloading from our website that only about less than 1%, I would say, really do focus on disability, and even less focus on sports and fitness. Now, Deloitte's had a very interesting and valuable study that also backs up what we're seeing. They have found that brands do still largely leave people with disabilities out, and they've found that less than 1% of ads represent people with disabilities, despite the fact that 1 in 4 of us adults today now live with a disability. So to that end, I've got 2 inclusivity check questions that you can ask yourself when selecting stories that tell how disabled people are really enjoying sport. So number 1, ask yourself, are you including people with and without disabilities together in sports and fitness settings? Remember, it is very much stories about belonging and inclusion. And secondly, are you focusing on disabled people's whole sport experience and not simply focusing on their disability within the visuals that you select? And again, Getty Images is very much here to help you find this relevant and authentic content with our disability collection, which we've done in partnership with the National Disability Leadership Alliance and Verizon Media. And here you will find very rich and wonderful stories that speak to stories across all types of disabilities, both physical and intellectual. And everybody that is in front of the camera that is in these stories genuinely lives with that disability. And again, that will bring greater authenticity to those visual stories. And finally, our last actionable insight for today is very much focusing on the role of gender in sport. Now, for those of you who caught our last episode in the download series, which focused on the LGBTQ plus guidelines and really talked about the role of gender and how you visualize that. And for those who haven't, please do catch that recording. But I think it's very important to ask yourself, are you showing people involved in sport who may not fit into neat definitions of gender? So Becca really spoke a lot about this in our last episode. But again, you know, we are seeing great inspirational stories of non-binary and trans athletes who are very powerful rallying calls of inclusion for their communities. So when it comes to representing them in sports visuals, it's very important to ask yourself, are you representing more than just their trans identity? So this is a really great example here where we're focusing on the passion of a derby roller skating with this individual. And then finally, let's just pause a little bit on women and girls in sport. Are you including females at all ages and life stages involved in all kinds of sport and fitness activities? We know that there's lots of research out there that shows that there's a drop-off for females, especially when they're entering puberty, or for new moms, or people going through pregnancy, or indeed for women in midlife from 40 to 55 who are either entering the perimenopause or the menopause. So again, very important to understand how you're representing and bringing an intersectional lens on women and girls in sport. So to help you again with that, we have very much put together the Women and Girls in Sport guidelines. Please do check it out, and we will follow up with it after this. So finally, still not convinced about the power of inclusive sports visuals? Well, here's something that will really help you understand that getting representation right is worth the effort and also good for the bottom line of your business. Deloitte have found that brands with the most representative ads have seen a 44% stock growth over the past 2 years. And we have found here on the Creative Insights team at Getty Images, no matter what kinds of visual studies that we do through Getty Images Visual GPS, we always find in every incidence, consumers are drawn to personality, to emotion, and all kinds of emotion, to realness, and to a very strong sense of human connection. So why not join us as we're pushing for change at Getty Images? We really genuinely believe that there's a huge opportunity here for you to tell stories around sports that have not been told before, and that will really have an impact and quite a meaningful one at a wider societal level, because it will help remove barriers to participation in sports and fitness. Now, while we won't reverse limiting stereotypes overnight, together we can genuinely create this impact by really putting inclusion to the fore and really telling stories through empathetic lens. So again, remember, check out our Disrupt Aging collection, our disability collection, our really wonderful women and girls in sport guidelines. And if you do happen to be focusing on telling visual stories around children, please do check out our BBC Kids collection, which really brings an intersectional lens that looks at children from all different socioeconomic backgrounds, religions, and culture. So that's it for me. I want to thank you very much for your time. I wish you well and much wonderful and inspiring visual searches on Getty Images. If you would like to find out more, please do visit Creative Insights and our collections at gettyimages.com. So back over to you now, Rachel.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Another win for Visual GPS there. Before we get to our bonus Olympic coverage, let's take some questions from our audience and welcome back our wonderful panel. So first up, I've got a question for Ross. What is the most important thing for a brand to consider when tapping into sport?
I think the most important thing when a brand is tapping sport, especially if they're doing it for the first time, is probably authenticity and credibility. I think if you are talking to an audience in sport, if you are aligning yourself with a sport or a team or a player, you need to ensure that you are using the right imagery, you're using the right video, you are using the right language, because sport fans know their sport better than anyone. So you really need to make sure you're being authentic and credible in anything you do when you're using sports marketing.
Thanks, Ross. Yeah, excellent. Sports fans totally know their business. Next up, how do you ensure that you are not simply ticking a checklist when it comes to an inclusive sport visual strategy? That's a question I'm going to send to Jacqueline.
So this is where Getty Images Visual GPS, Richard, really does come to the fore again, because it reveals that consumers really want you to focus less on people's appearance in the visuals that you pick and more to focus on visuals that really show true lifestyles and cultures. So you can ask yourself, well, am I representing a lot of intersecting identity factors around the people that I'm showing within the visuals I select? But also it's important to ask yourself, do the people feel real? Do they represent people that you know in your everyday life and world? But also, do the visuals feel quite genuine? So here again is where we do quite a bit of that work for you to help you find that content quicker. And my tip again is please do check out Creative Insights and our collections to find the most relevant and authentic visual stories for you.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, Creative Insights is your Bible for imagery selection for sure. I've got a question for Alwyn next. How can I make sure that I'm searching for model released content and therefore cleared for all uses?
Good question, Rachel. Well, there's two things you can do. The first is to check that you're searching on the creative part of the site and not the editorial part of the site. And then the other thing you can do is on the filter panel on the left-hand side, there'll be a section on model release status. What you want to do is you want to check fully released. And those two filters will ensure that any sport that you search on will give you material that's cleared for all usage and immediate use.
Filters are your friends, remember everyone? And finally, if I have trouble finding the images I'm looking for, is there anyone I can reach out to? Adam, I feel like you'll have a good answer for this one.
That's right, Rachel. If you are having trouble finding your imagery, if the keywords aren't working, or you're not really sure if the theme that you're looking for is coming up in your searches, please do reach out to your salesperson or Getty Images support, and they will be happy to set you up with the research team. We are a global research team as well. So we do have resources across the globe, and we are able to go ahead and try to assist with you in getting the best content for your production.
Well, that's all that we've got time for today for questions. Thank you to our amazing panelists, Ross Watson, Alwyn Gosford, Adam Leveroni, and Jacqueline Burke. Answers to any questions we didn't get to will be posted to our show page on the Getty Images blog later this week. And up next, our bonus Olympic coverage. Sport has the power to unify us, something that's always beautifully on display at the Olympic Games. But this year, because of the global pandemic, coming together looked a bit different. How did Getty Images capture it like no one else can? Well, here to tell us all about the 2020 Games and some of our unique sport partnerships are Eugene Cariaga, Janie Marks, and Michael Hyman from the Getty Images sports team. Welcome to the show, Eugene, Janie, and Michael.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for having us today on the download. Really appreciate your time. I'm Eugene Cariaga, Senior Director at Getty Images, and also I co-manage the EMEA Sport and Entertainment team. Today, we're going to go through what goes on around the Olympic and Paralympic Games. Getty Images covers over 50,000 sports events every year. And obviously, these relationships allow us to provide our customers with an extensive coverage of everything that goes on in sport around the world. Obviously, the pandemic has been a bit of a nightmare for all of us, but slowly but surely, everything is coming back. One of our longest and long-standing relationships is with the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, and also the International Paralympic Committee, the IPC. We have been official photographers and photo supplier to them for over 50 years now. It's a huge honor, and we take this extremely seriously. But at the same time, it allows us to put the teams on the ground, whether that be in Tokyo, Beijing, Paris or LA, or even Milan Cortina in a few years' time. It enables us to provide the greatest amount of content to our customers and ensure that those Olympic moments and Paralympic moments are there for history and are recorded. We are now joined by Michael Hyman and Janie Marks. Janie Marks is Senior Director at Getty Images, and she manages a lot of our media customers, as well as manages our Olympic and Paralympic relationships in North America. And Michael Hyman, who is Vice President of Editorial Operations, and he's going to go through and tell us all about what we did at the Olympic and Paralympic Games. So Mike, what's it like to plan and operate an Olympic Games?
Good question, Eugene. Planning an Olympic Games, especially the Summer Olympic Games, is one of the most complex events that we have to cover because of this sheer size of the event. In Tokyo, we had 33 venues across thousands of kilometers of Japan. We had venues all the way up north in Sapporo. We had a surfing venue on the East Coast. We had a sailing venue down south in Yokohama. A cycling venue all the way to 2.5 hours south of Tokyo in Izu. We needed to get out to all these venues, set up our cameras, set up our network, make sure we had the photo positions, make sure we had accommodations. All this took years of planning. And it wouldn't have been possible without working very closely with Tokyo 2020, the IOC, and the IPC. Because of the sheer magnitude of this event, we need lots of photographers and editors in order to just cover it all. You have over 330 different events to cover from 33 sports. For the Summer Olympics, you're talking about over 11,000 athletes. For the Paralympics, Summer Paralympics, you're talking over 4,000 athletes competing from hundreds of different countries. We have to cover all these moments, especially the medal moments. We have to cover all of the athletes for all the different countries. And it takes a lot of planning. We had over 100 people on the ground in Tokyo, which were supported by about 75 people remotely. And that allowed our photographers to shoot pictures and in real time transmit it to their editors, who are sitting around the globe working 24/7 and sending those pictures to our customers in seconds as they happened. Fully photoshopped, fully captioned, fully edited. During the Olympic Games, we shot over 2 million images. We transmitted about 144,000 of those images across the 16 days of competition. That's for the Summer Olympic Games. In the Paralympic Games, we had a little smaller team, but we sent over, I think, 40,000 pictures to our clients during that stretch of time.
Yeah, so Mike, this is huge from an operational perspective. What's the kind of equipment that we need, and what does the office need to look like on the ground in Tokyo?
As I said earlier, we had over 100 people on the ground in Tokyo. We needed an office to support all those people. That includes things like computers, monitors, TVs, internet, Wi-Fi, servers, chairs, desks, refrigerators, microwaves, everything that goes into building an office. And the tricky part about this one was it was during a pandemic, so we had to build in social distancing. We had to make sure we had proper sanitation and proper cleaning. All this didn't really start until July 1st, when the advanced team had arrived in Tokyo. And the team landed and went straight to work building out the office, as you can see from some of these videos. They had about 23 days to do so because the Olympics started on July 24th. And so in addition to building out the office, they also had to go to the venues and make sure those are all good. And as I said, there was 33 of those spread across Japan. So that entailed a lot of work and a lot of moving around. In addition to the office, we also need to supply our photographers with the proper equipment to cover the games. That includes a ton of photographic equipment, lenses, flashes, cameras, all the things that are needed to cover the Olympics. As I said, we had about 100 people on the ground in Tokyo. About 70 of them were photographers. Each photographer has about 4 cameras and 10 lenses. In addition to the camera gear that they're carrying with them, we also have remote cameras and robotic cameras in the roofs and even underwater at some of these venues.
So Mike, we've seen the hardware that the photographer on the field of play is using. Can you tell us now and show us what the guys are doing with the robotic and the remote cameras?
In Tokyo, we had over 30 remote and robotic cameras hung in all the venues for the Olympics and Paralympic Games. Some of these are robotic cameras, as you see in these videos here. Some of them are static cameras. All of them are fired remotely, either by a photographer covering the sport down on the field of play, or actually are some of our robotic operators, which you see in one of these videos, operating the cameras in real time as competitions happening. This is all tied into our network, and so we're able to control these from anywhere, and it allows us to really give a different perspective to the Olympic Games. Often Olympic logos, Tokyo 2020, the Olympic rings are actually on the field of play, and the best way to capture them, which I'll show later on, is to actually shoot it from above. All of this equipment has to find its way into the roofs of venues, and that means working at heights, often in catwalks, as you see in this video on the right, or hanging the robotic cameras on trusses, which are hoisted up over the field of play. It really allows us to provide a different perspective of these games, of any games, and in Tokyo, the pictures were actually fantastic from these remotes and robotics.
But I've heard that we also capture content from multiple different venues from different positions. How do we do that, Mike?
In addition to all the robotics and remotes we have up in the roofs at these venues, we also have some custom-built underwater robotics that go in the pools at the aquatics center. So that covers the swimming, the diving, the synchro, and water polo. These cameras, which we build custom, are controlled by an operator who is obviously not underwater, and it allows us, just like with the remotes and the robotics above the field of play, it allows us to catch some really, really unique angles of the swimming, of the aquatics sports that you would not normally see. So much happens underwater at these events, and the pictures are actually absolutely fantastic, which I'll show in a bit here.
So Mike, obviously we've heard about all of the equipment. We've heard about the amazing team on the ground in Tokyo. Let's look at some photos.
Right. What would the Olympics be without any photos, right? That's why we're there. That's why we're there, to produce the most amazing Olympic photos anywhere. And Tokyo 2020 Olympics and Paralympics did not disappoint. I know I talked a lot about the technology, the gear, the robotics, the underwater remotes, all of that we put in place. We get in early so we can capture these amazing games from different angles. And it's all about setting the picture in the time and the place it happens, giving it a purpose, showing the viewer where the photo was taken and what it's of. This slide here, you see a picture from the opening ceremonies shot by Cameron Spencer. That was from a remote that he set up in front of him. Right as the flame was lit, the Olympic Stadium burst into fireworks, and the organizing committee was kind enough to make the fireworks form Mount Fuji, which is also seen in the foreground of the Olympic cauldron. This picture was shot probably on a 3-second exposure, and it really captures the moment that the game started, the moment the flame was lit, and we all kind of went into games mode and started covering. In this picture on the bottom of BMXer Nick Bruce from Team USA, you see our photographer, Lawrence Griffith, actually captured Nick performing a trick right in front of the Olympic rings. It sets the time and the place, and the lighting is actually almost looks like it was shot in a studio. It's a great moment. On the right is a boxing photo captured by one of our robotic cameras above the boxing ring. And as I was saying earlier, the reason we set these cameras up is because oftentimes the logo and the look of the games is on the field of play. This is actually looking down on the boxing mat, and you see the boxers kind of in a position, as they're fighting. You can actually see the logos on their gloves, and it really kind of sets the time and place for the photo.
So, Mike, obviously we're at the Olympics, but 2 weeks later, with a brand new setup and sometimes a new team as well of photographers going into Tokyo, we cover the Paralympic Games. Let's look at some photos from that.
You're right, Eugene. We actually plan out the Summer Olympics and the Paralympics at the same time. There is a gap of about 2 weeks in between them, but it allows us to cover the event as kind of one large event. They're both really important events, and they both produce amazing pictures. The two pictures on top here are actually from the Paralympics, and the one on the bottom is actually from the Olympics. The one on the top left shows 3 Chinese swimmers, actually, and this was taken by our staff photographer, Adam Pretty, using the underwater robotic camera that I talked about earlier. It shows from the side angle, exactly what these athletes are doing when they're underwater, which is actually pretty fantastic. And you see, because of the angle of the camera is that, you actually see the reflection of the athletes above them. So it kind of looks like they're swimming in a mirror. It makes for amazing angles. Again, Adam set the robotic camera up underwater, waited for the moment that the athletes came through the frame and fired it. On the right is actually probably one of my favorite pictures of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games. It was an amazing moment at the athletics of the women's 100-meter final, which actually was a sweep by the Italians. This picture, it was pouring rain. It captures the emotion, the celebration, and it doesn't matter that the track is soaked and there's rain and all over the place. They're just living in the moment. And there's actually an amazing set of this moment where they just celebrated, and it captures the Olympic movement, the Paralympic movement amazingly in one picture. Just that sheer bit of emotion when you've realized that you've won gold and just happen to do it with your other teammates. It was an amazing moment. And on the bottom is a picture of Kate Douglas of Team USA competing in the 100-meter women's 200-meter medley. This shows kind of what our specialist photographers are able to capture, because you see her reflection in the water in front of her, and you're only actually able to capture this on her first lap, because after she's already gone through once, the water is so choppy, the athletes around create a lot of wake, and it's a really tough moment to capture. And this was a picture by our staff photographer, Al Bello. It's just actually amazing, showing that moment of competition in the swimming.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate you taking the time to run us through that. And for everyone that's watching, I would say, the content that is created and the speed to market is only done by planning. And this operational team does a fantastic job. They did this during a pandemic. The restrictions in Japan were extremely restrictive. There was actually a state of emergency in Japan for the whole duration of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, which actually meant that all photographers had to either quarantine, they had to test every day. The weather conditions were above 40 degrees on most days, and humidity was over 75%. So to actually, the output from that content shows the dedication and expertise that these photographers have, but none of that could have been done without the immense work put in advance with that extra year to help, but under terrible situations by the operational team. So thanks very much, Mike. We really appreciate your time. Thank you. So we've seen how the operational team help deliver content to our customers. Now I'm delighted to introduce Janie Marks, who's Senior Director of Sales in North America. So Janie, can you talk us through some of what's our relationship in the United States with the Olympic and Paralympic Committee?
Thanks, Eugene. We've been involved with the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee for over 25 years as their official photographer licensee. And with that partnership, have been lucky enough to work with a variety of their sponsors and licensees during that time period. In addition, we've recently extended our relationship with the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee to become an official licensee and photographic partner, if you will, with LA28. So I'm excited that our relationship will be continuing for another 7 years.
That's fantastic. And obviously we're working closely with the USOPP, but what other media clients and customers do we manage at the Olympic and Paralympic Games?
Thank you for asking that question. A big part of what I do is help manage all of our commercial relationships in the United States around the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games. When we work with clients, some of our commercial corporate partners, if you will, these people include Visa, Procter & Gamble, Intel, Toyota Motors North America, to name a few. And oftentimes, these corporate partners of ours establish a large advisory staff of athletes which they sponsor. And I take it upon myself to ensure that we will leverage a relationship across our editorial content to ensure that our photographers capture the depth and breadth of their athlete competition during Olympic trials, as well as Olympic and Paralympic competitions, to assume that we can deliver content to them by oftentimes signing them up to a premium access subscription agreement, so they'll be able to download content almost in real time during Olympic and Paralympic Games to take advantage oftentimes of doing things such as social media posts throughout the Olympic and Paralympic Games.
Wow, that sounds great. And I think from a content perspective, no one does it actually better than Getty Images. And also during the Olympics and Paralympics, we also offer assignment photography as well. So do we do any assignments for Procter & Gamble, for example?
Absolutely. A couple of things I could speak to. Obviously, it was a little bit different this games because of the COVID restrictions, but oftentimes during the games, we've had the luxury of working very closely with our friends at Procter & Gamble and Ketchum to oversee their photography needs across their P&G family home. We've done that for a number of Olympic Games, whereby they'll bring in athletes that are part of their advisory team and do personal appearances and set up media interviews on site within their complex. This games, we also did some photography, for instance, for Intel, who, if you were able to witness opening ceremony, did a tremendous drone activation, if you will, creating the world, and also the John Lennon Imagine words on top of the stadium during opening ceremony of the Tokyo Olympic Games. So oftentimes we are fortunate to have the behind the scenes access to shoot technology in the case of Intel, or like I mentioned, the case of Procter & Gamble in their standalone facility at their P&G family home. So we appreciate the opportunity to do that and to deliver the content same day as captured.
Fantastic, Janie. And I know that next year is a busy year anyway, 2022 with the FIFA World Cup and also the UEFA Women's Tournament as well. So sport never stops, and Janie is a huge part of that. So thanks very much, Janie, for your time today.
Thanks, Eugene. Pleasure to be part of it. Appreciate it.
So thanks for joining us today. We've heard from Michael Hyman and we've heard from Janie Marks on the Olympic and Paralympic Games in Tokyo 2020 +1. So it's been a great honor to speak today on the Download, but time never stops. In 148 days, Beijing 2022 starts. We're already planning, we're already sending applications, and the operational team are already off and running. So Rachel, over to you.
Thank you so much, team. Amazing efforts by Getty Images at the Olympics once more. If you have any questions about editorial or commercial licenses, how content can be used, or what's included in your premium access subscription, please contact your Getty Images representative. And that just about does it for today's show. Thanks again to all of our amazing experts for sharing their valuable insights. If you have any questions or topics you want to see us cover on future episodes, drop us a line at thedownload@gettyimages.com. Until next time, I've been your host, Rachel Brinton Matthews. We'll see you then.